I'm very honored to introduce to you my boss, Brewster Kahle, who, I think 30 some odd years ago was the guy in the hoodie, right, who was studying. He didn't wear a hoodie, I don't think, because this was the 70s and the 80s, but he was studying over there at MIT, and he was one of the first creators of supercomputers. Brewster went on to make the first web publishing platform for the web. But the story that I love, the reason I work for him, is because when he was a young undergraduate at MIT studying artificial intelligence, he was crossing a bridge over the Charles River, and his friends said to him, "Brewster, are you a utopian?" He said, "Yeah." I mean, this was like the 70s. And he said, "Are you a technologist?" And he said, "Well, of course." And he said, "Then why aren't you using your technology to build utopia?" And something about that conversation just stuck in Brewster's craw, right? He couldn't get it out of his head. And so he thought and thought, what could I do with my technology? And he thought, well, I could build the next Library of Alexandria, the digital library of our times for everything, forever. But he said, nah, everyone will do that. That's too obvious. So I could work on privacy. Privacy is going to be a big issue. So I'll do that. So he worked on privacy for a few years, but actually privacy turns out, as we now know, to be quite a tough nut to crack. So after a while, he went back to that original dream of creating the world's largest digital library. And he created companies, sold them to AOL and to Amazon, but in the back of his mind, those were just stepping stones to do what he really wanted to do, which was to save our cultural treasures for all time. Flash forward 20 years, and the Internet Archive has now archived, 3 million books, 3 million hours of television from around the world, 479 billion web pages, all saved because of this talk across the Charles River. But I think the reason I work for the Internet Archive is because I ask you this question. If you were the first guy or woman to realize that this World Wide Web thing back in the 90s was maybe going to be something, and that maybe someday we should save all of that because our history, our lives would be carried out on this thing called the web, and you built the first web crawlers to systematically go across and save everything, and you owned the only complete archive of the web going back in time that's open to people, how many people within 100 miles of this place would not monetize that, but make it available to everyone for free forever? I think there's only one. His name is Brewster Kahle, and he's with you today. We asked Brewster what he wants, and he said, "I'd like to make all the published works of humankind accessible to anyone curious enough to learn from them." Please welcome the founder of Internet Archive and its chief digital librarian, Brewster Kahle.
Great to be here. Thank you. And thank you, Van Jones. You're right. We'd hire a lot more people if we possibly could that have technical chops. But we as parents, librarians, educators, a big part of our job is to put the best we have to offer within reach of our children. The good news is our children are looking for that information. They're looking to their screens, they're searching, they're finding, but they're not finding all the great stuff. All of us that know something deeply know that what's available online is not all of it. Wikipedia is great, but it bottoms out really fast. The best we have to offer is not within reach of our children. And if the whole generation goes by, we're going to get the generation we deserve, and it's going to be our fault. Our opportunity, our possibility, is to bring all of these materials within easy reach. I'm going to suggest in this, there's going to be the anti-Van Jones talk. I'm going to suggest how are we doing towards this? And the answer is really good and not enough. If you ask most young people, they say it's already there. The Library of Congress is online. I get it all the time. I search Google, it's there. But those of us, we know that's not true. I'm going to suggest that we can get there together, we can get there efficiently. The rights, the money, the technology is all available to us. Now we need a little bit of institutional swaying over, and we can get there. Let's see if I can get this to go. Beep. Universal access to all knowledge. I'm going to suggest this is not only possible, it's our responsibility to get it done, and we can get it done. I work in a nonprofit library in San Francisco. We've got scanning centers all over the world, but it's within the tradition of a library. I like what people carve in stone above doors. At the Boston Public Library, the robber barons carved "free to all." These were not a very sharing group in general, but there's something about information that has a different role in our lives. That's the tradition we're within. I'm going to go over books, music, video, web pages, software, and show how can we go and build universal access to all knowledge. If we want all books, the question is how many are there? Library of Congress is the largest library by far. It's about 28 million books. A book is about a megabyte. 28 million megabytes, it goes mega, giga, tera, 28 terabytes. That's 4 hard drives you can buy in Best Buy for less than you pay in rent in a month. All the words in the Library of Congress for less than what you pay in rent in a month. That's interesting. Something's changed. If you have images of the pages, they're bigger. But the idea that we can get beautiful books online and available is now doable. But not everybody wants them online. When we started doing this, we found people don't have access to computers or they don't want to read online. So we printed them back out again. We made a bookmobile. Satellite dish, printer, butter cutter, kids making their own books. At $1 a book, you can download, print, and bind a book. That's less than it costs a library to administratively lend out a book. So why not? And then you collect it back so that you don't waste the trees. But the idea of printing and binding works. We did a couple in India as demos. This is the first day at the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. Engineer with a kid with his first book he's ever owned. And we even got it to work in rural Uganda. So there's even benefits of going and taking the great libraries and making them available. So how do we do that? Well, I think screens are going to be much more plentiful than and available than a lot of people have thought, and it's happening. And there are all these screens and devices. My favorite one is this one. It is a talking machine. You can basically OCR, turn it into words, and it talks a little bit like this, but you can read books to people that are blind and dyslexic. And there are a tremendous number, not only of us that are growing a little older that could use some help, but there are lots of kids that actually don't relate to books terribly well, and we can overcome this in this transition. So how do we do this? Well, we have to digitize everything. So yes, we scan, might be another way of putting it. And so it costs about 10 cents a page to photograph all of the pages, turn it into OCR, and permanently keep it online and keep it in all these different formats. There's scanning centers like this that we operate. There are others that other people operate. And at 10 cents a page, $30 a book, $30 a book. At 10 million books, 10 million books is a Yale, a Princeton, or a Boston Public Library. That is a great library system. 10 million books, $30 a book, $300 million. But good news is we're already through a lot of it, or at least through a lot of the public domain materials. We're getting access to the great works, whether it's also being digitized in China by the Chinese, for the Chinese, not as outsourcing, as well as works we're doing. We're also looking for whole critical masses, whole cultures that want to go online. And we found the first one. I made this offer to a lot of people. The Balinese said, we want to. And the reason why they want to is there are 3 million people on an island. They speak Balinese. Their children are being taught Indonesian. Give it another couple generations. The reason why people go to Bali may not be there anymore because the culture is being washed out in basically having languages wiped out. So the Balinese said, we'll put everything we've ever written online. And this has been one of the fascinating projects for me because the way that they write is on palm leaves, which is kind of cool. And the way that they read these things is often through shadow puppet plays, or dances. This is how they live their cultural works. And as we go and bring these things online, we can keep smaller cultures online, and we can educate tremendous numbers of people effectively. So the idea of bringing these things online is doable. I'd just like to take a pause and say hooray for the Balinese, to be the first to go and say, we want everything we've ever written online, so go Bali. I would like to see a few more cultures do this, but we're making progress even without with all of it. We're digitizing about 1,000 books every day with support of libraries, and the idea is to get to 10 million books, but we're only at about 3 million books that are available for free, that are publicly accessible, and we're doing copyrighted works by digitizing and lending. Digitize and lend one copy. And that works. Nobody's suing anybody. It's all working to be able to have the library kind of thing that we grew up with, a little clunky, but lending is working as a mechanism of dealing with the copyright issues. So we've got books is within our grasp to do all of it. Let me suggest the other media types of how this can work, and I'll speed up a little bit, and I'll leave some time for questions. Music, we worked with those that want to share. The Grateful Dead started a tradition of allowing people to record their concerts and trade them as long as no one made any money. So we became a host of these large-scale files and made them freely available, again, because that's within the no money context, and it works. And we have 9,000 concerts. It turns out that there are lots of other bands that have copied the Grateful Dead. We have 6,000 bands and 130,000 concerts now available for free. This is not because of us, it's because of communities wanting to share, and they're just using digital technologies and organizations that act like libraries in the digital age to be able to do the work in this time around. Audio recordings, we now have 2 million of them from lots of different sources, lots of different news organizations that want to share. It shouldn't cost you to give something away. In the United States, if you give something away, you get a pat on the back and a tax donation, except online. You give it away, if it gets really popular, you can lose your house with ISP fees. So we want to make it that if people want to share, they can do it without it costing them anything. So we offer free hosting for any cultural material that they want to make available. And this has been an offer that millions of people have now taken up on. Moving images. Most people think of moving images as Hollywood films. Most of this is stuff being sold. So we need to find mechanisms of moving beyond that to other types of moving images. We're doing a lot of cultural materials that people are loving, social behavior films and the like. We also offer free uploading. YouTube does this as well. They've certainly walked away with almost everything, but there's a lot of materials that people find are appropriate in a library as opposed to a commercial setting. We're getting better at digitizing films, and we can do these things at scale, including VHS tapes, the media that nobody loves anymore, but a lot of us brought up on it, so digitizing these and making them available is all around working. Television, like the videos, the documentaries that often you guys go and pay for, are not available or not very available. So we've been recording television from 25 countries, 71 channels, 24 hours a day, DVD quality. You can do this with technology. And we've been lending US television news and making it searchable, so you can search based on transcripts to be able to find things that you want. We want everyone to be a Jon Stewart research department. We want everyone to be able to think critically about what's being said on television. Van Jones included. So if you want to look at all of the mentions of Snowden, you can do that by searching 600,000 programs, touch of a button, and be able to get clips, put it in your blog. If you want the whole program, you can, we burn it onto a DVD and lend it to you. Why lend it? Because that's what libraries do. And it's a concession within the, with the publishing world that's working. So we now have over 1 million moving images online and the like. oh, another story. Sometimes if you make things available online, you get attention that you don't want. So the FBI gave us one of these nasty grams called a national security letter. This is one of these things where they go and demand information from you and you can never tell anybody that it's ever happened. You just have to answer it or you go to jail. We said to our lawyers, the EFF, what do we do about this? Nothing. What can we do? Nothing. What if we don't reply? Jail. So is there anything we could do? He said, you can sue the United States government. So we sued the United States government, and we won. It turns out they didn't need that information about a patron of the Internet Archive, and libraries know about reader privacy and how important that is. And luckily, we can stand up and say, we are a library, you can't do this, and they back down. Software titles, we're getting much better at software and reproducing it online. But we're probably best known for archiving the World Wide Web. We archive about 1 billion pages every week. This is what Yahoo looked like in 1996. What Bets.com, lots of people doing bad web design. But also, here's a press release by the President of the United States on an aircraft carrying saying, announces combat operations in Iraq have ended. 2 days later, they changed the press release to say that major combat operations have ceased. So if there weren't libraries in the digital world, then we can live in this Orwellian permanent present of whatever it is the power structure that's promoting things want to be the message. So we have web archiving tools working with communities, such as in the Japan disaster, to go and archive things that are no longer available. Archive things that are no longer available. And it's working with communities to build web and making that available. Books, music, videos, software, web, all doable. Then it's not enough. We've got to preserve this. How do we do that if the lesson of the Library of Alexandria version 1 is probably best known for burning, not being here anymore. So if we're going to learn from that, how are we going to preserve these materials? The lesson I learned out of that is don't just have one copy. So when they built a new Library of Alexandria, we gave them a copy of everything we had. And this is what it looks like in Alexandria. This is what it looks like, the first part of it, in Amsterdam. And this is what it looks like in San Francisco. So San Francisco, earthquake zone, let's see, Middle East, and Amsterdam, a flood zone. What could go wrong? So if we had 5 or 6 of these around the world, I think we could basically sleep easy that we'd make it through another couple hundred years and not lose our digital cultural heritage. We're getting better at physical materials because libraries are throwing things away. So we're starting to receive digital materials as well. Universal access to all knowledge. I want to argue that it's doable, it's within our grasp to go and make it so that anyone curious enough to want to learn from the great cultural works of humankind, we've got the money to be able to do it, we have the technology to be able to do it, we have the rights to be able to do it. We just need to move our institutions somewhat to be able to fulfill this dream. Thank you very much.
Can you be more specific about what we need to do to move our institutions? Give us a hypothetical institution and what that institution would need to do.
What we're trying to do is bring all of our libraries digital. We don't want to replace all of our libraries with either me or anybody else particularly. We want to move our libraries digital. So what does this take? It takes basically a massive job of digitizing the past and collecting the born digital materials. Bringing the past online, if we take the books, music, video, Boston Public Library, Yale, or Princeton, it's about a $100 million project. It's a lot of money. But most people go and carve off different pieces. They say, I want to make sure math is done really well, or I want to do these different pieces very well. But $100 million is for all the books. If you take all the media also, and you do it efficiently within our country, with our own workers, it's about a $160 million project. What the good news is, and Google actually helped, scare the bejesus out of the libraries, and the libraries are willing to have their collections digitized as long as they don't feel like they're going to get in trouble for it, or if they don't have to pay anything. So we can, for the cost of photography, which is 10 cents a page, digitize works that have cost these institutions billions to build. We can walk in and digitize away, and they'll put no new rights on it. They're not going to go and say, well, I'm this institution, you can't have access or whatever. They won't put any new restrictions on it. We're just coming around the corner of being able to do large-scale, in copyright digitization, and having the lending and the access to the blind and dyslexic done enough that calms the institutions to make this available. So it's basically, at this point, almost pour money in and stir. And we can bring our library system digital, and we then regroove our library system to serving a population that are reading things on screens.
Brewster, how are journalists and filmmakers using the archive?
Oh, we're popular. For instance, documentarians use the television material. A lot of journalists. Let's take the Charleston case. Sorry to bring this up. Phone calls flashing around me on Saturday because the manifesto of the killer, killer, or apparently of the killer, was on a website that was around for only a short time, about a month, and it was reported in BuzzFeed and then the New York Times, and it was taken down. The only copies of this were in the Internet Archive. And so the photos that you see all over the place and the manifesto, they were originally discovered when they were live online, but they went away, and the Internet Archive was there. What was interesting in that case is that a lot of people said, wow, that's an important page. They went to the Wayback Machine and they hit the button, Save Page Now. And then it's a record of it is then in the Internet Archive permanently for people to be able to see. So we are majorly used within those communities. And also, frankly, it's taking a lot of the materials that you guys probably have gone and funded and making them permanently available for free to others, whether it's Democracy Now! Or the like. Unfortunately, a lot of the documentarians feel that they have to keep things locked up or on their shelves or in their closets or in their basements rather than putting them up. So I think we can do more towards getting a lot of the materials that you fund up and on the Internet Archive and permanently available if we change a little bit of the orchestration.
Yes, how would you characterize your relationship and support from the American Library Association on this project?
Oh, 100% great. ALA is showing up at in San Francisco this week. 20,000 of our closest friends. And the American Library Association, which is large-scale public libraries, are thrilled about this because a lot of the licensing structures for going and borrowing books through Overdrive with special decryption, blah, 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 don't work for the public libraries very well. They don't even work very well in the academic libraries, but they really don't work in the public libraries. The academic libraries are also feeling that they're scrunched. As this digital wave came through, there were monopolies formed. Whether it's Elsevier or these journal publishers that are making it so that it's impossible to do the new style research, the big data research that the new researchers want to do. You can't download all of the papers or all of the books. They'll shut you down. They'll get you arrested. So these are the new people, the young people, the new research that we want to encourage by having open library-like reactions to the digital wave as opposed to the clamp down and put as many security things around them. So we are embedded in the library system, but we are seen as kind of the technology vanguard and a leader in this area.
Thank you, Brewster.
Thank you very much.